Nemo Radio is on the air.
A, B, C. A, always B, B, C, closing. Always be closing. Always be closing.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Put that coffee down. Coffee's for closers only. Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
All right, we are live. Welcome to Noon with Nemo. You are not seeing two of me, although the two apparitions on your screen right now are ridiculously handsome, talented, funny, witty. They're really, in fact, you know, women have been known to get pregnant just from looking at John Michael Morgan, my next guest. Yeah. So I'm going there.
All right.
Let me find the blue steel photo. Okay, hold on. So I want to welcome everybody to Noon with Nemo. This is obviously a different format. First of all, I found it. Yes. Okay. So, okay, here it is.
I don't want to know what you found.
Well, there's several things I found. Okay, so let me welcome everyone who's getting logged in. We're going to do a special, different kind of Noon with Nemo format today. All John Morgan jokes aside, let us know in the chat where you're logging in from, what type of work you do, as we're getting everybody in. And then I want to share my screen quickly and introduce John Michael Morgan, today's guest. There it is. Woo! Wow! Hold on, ladies. He's taken. Calm down. John is amazing. This John Michael Morgan has been my business coach, personal coach since 2012, since I found him. And we'll talk about that journey today. But you can see he is a big deal. I mean, his client list is ridiculous, right? There's BMW, McDonald's, Starbucks, Disney, Twitter, Google, and me. Right? So John, you know, he'll come down and talk to the little people too. So, but he's an amazing person. This is actually how I found John. And there's a great lesson in this too. But I was searching on Amazon back when I had a day job and looking for a book about marketing and branding and getting ideas and inspiration. I read this book and it was so well written. There was so much great advice. And John put so much of his personality into the book. And this is a lesson all in itself. I felt like by the end of reading this book, Branding Gets the Machine, and is there a link to it on here, John? We should link to that.
Yeah, if you click it.
Of course there is. This is what I refer to as blue steel. I mean, look at that intensity. It's smoldering. You're actually literally smoldering. Okay. Can hear John talking. People, can they not see us? Okay, they should see us.
Yeah, I don't think I've said anything for them to hear.
I don't let you get a word in, buddy.
You're doing the most epic intro that I've had, so I'm just
and now
letting you run with it.
Live from Nashville. All right, Rock from Minnesota, good to see you. Marceline is here. Michael says, can you hear me? Well, we can't hear you, Michael. I can see your text, but you should just have chat capabilities. If you're having any issues, any audio or video issues, just refresh. So I'll just repost that. If you're not seeing us or hearing us. All right. And Doc Carney's got a little line in here. I would tell you, but since he's your coach, I want to be good business coach. Wow. So much more quiet than the man Nemo. Royce from Mesa, Arizona. Just wait. Ben is in the house. Good to see you, Benny. All right, so everybody else who's getting logged in, I want to welcome you to today's course, online training, all kinds of stuff. We're going to have a lot of fun. I see Charles is here. It's Charles Alexander. We're stacking the house. The house.
The handsomeness just continues.
Wow, there's just too much Nashville already. Okay, so we got Margaret, Ben, Steve, Lenny the lawyer is here, John, Stuart, Marco, Michael, Tony, JD, Kurt from Madtown. We have another John here. Brenda, Cliff, Catherine, Zara. Let us know where you're logging in from, what type of work you do. Lynn, Janelle, Quinn, Michael, Rio. Blame it on Rio, baby. All right. Philip from Switzerland. Oh, man. Michael says I've had to refresh and re-enter the link twice. So I'll say, Michael, go ahead, quit your browser. Log out and log back in. Can everybody see and hear us? Okay. Otherwise, Marco from Finland. All right. Wonderful. Lynn from Minneapolis, where it's like 1 degree right now. Michael logging in from Knoxville. All right. It's Tennessee heavy.
I was gonna say it still counts. Still part of Tennessee. Still counts.
All right. Michael says, okay, come back. So everybody else, let us know where you're logging in from, what type of work you do. And then the other big thing, because John is such a big deal and because he does have so much expertise, and I'm going to reshare my screen for everybody. Catherine, good to see you, life coach from California. Okay. All right. We got Connecticut. All right. Love it, love it, love it. Again, this is John's book. It's amazing. You should definitely get it. This is why I hired him all the way back in 2012. This is John's website. And so I just want people to be able to find this information. What I would love to do is obviously John and I are going to talk and share our favorite tips on personal branding, marketing, leads, sales, how to get big name clients, what I've learned from John and how you can take it and run with it. But also I want you to be able to pick his brain and ask your questions. So whatever questions that you have right now here today, for those of you that are on live, type them into the chat box. And then what John and I will do is actually together answer this. This is almost like open mic. So John Morgan website, I'm putting in there. All right. Now no video or audio. Sorry, Michael. All right, Steve, good to see you. What I'd like to do.
By the way, Janelle from Nashville, Brentwood area, literally 45 minutes from me.
Wow, Mary.
And I love that I point, even though no one can see it, and none of you care that Janelle's that way. But
it's so nice now that people know you're not a mime, that you're actually allowed to talk.
Right.
So why don't you, obviously, I could do a great intro, and I've already kind of been raving about you, but why don't you tell us in your own words who you are, what your story is, what you do?
All right, I'll give the shortest version possible so we can get to the Q&A. John Michael Morgan, I've owned different businesses that I've built and sold, but I have done consulting and coaching for brands and entrepreneurs for over 13 years now. And I help with marketing, I help with mindset. I speak at events when we could do that. And I also, I coach you. I put up with you for, many years now.
I have notes from over 187 coaching calls with John Morgan. I haven't learned a damn thing, but I still take notes. Oh!
Wow. All right, that's fine. You know what? I'm breaking up. Maybe my internet connection's not so good now.
So here's the thing. I just want to briefly share how I found John and what he's done for me, I should say, not what we've done together, what he's done for me. And then I want to open it up to you for questions. So everyone watching, listening, everyone in the chat, if you have questions about marketing, sales, branding, how to get leads, how to get big name clients, type that into the chat and we can, talk to you directly if you want us to look at your website, your LinkedIn profile, whatever. But the key thing, when I found John, and it's fun to kind of look at the evolution of this. I mean, still had a day job, wanted to leave, read your book. And the first great lesson I got from you that I want to share with people is valuing your time. And I'll never forget reading your book, Branding Against the Machine. And it was like, you had this section in there to this day that I never forgot, which said, if you're going to be a business owner, a coach, a consultant, if you're going to have a strong personal brand, stop giving away your time. Stop letting people pick your brain. Stop letting them buy you coffee, take you out to lunch, and you're like, if you want to take me out to lunch, and that you wrote this back in 2012, so the rates have probably gone up. You're like, it'll be $250 and you have to buy lunch. Now, if you want to do that and you're in Nashville and it fits in, fine.
Right.
And I remember reaching out on Twitter, like, I don't want to buy you lunch, but can I pay you $250 to pick your brain? And that was the beginning, because I was like, it put you in such a position of authority instead of me going, hey, I liked your book. Can I pick your brain? So talk about where that came from for you and why that's so important for everyone watching to understand protecting your time and not just pick your brain and all that.
What it came to is my first business was a real estate company. And it was amazing how many people would set appointments with me and never show up. They didn't care, right? If you're a realtor, it's like, whatever. And I had that all the time. I mean, I was stood up just all the time. And as I transitioned into the business that I still have today with coaching and consulting, I just looked around. I realized, attorneys don't do that. doctors don't do that. Like actual, professionals don't just jump because someone wants to buy them coffee. And the other thing I looked at is, what is my actual product? Well, my product is people are renting my brain. That's my business, which means if I'm willing to give someone any insights or wisdom that I may have for, a $7 lunch, or, let's say they take me somewhere real nice, like a $20 lunch or whatever. Because let's face it, if they're buying, I'm getting dessert, appetizer, I want it all, right? Then it's like, that's what I'm basically saying my information is worth. But then it got deeper than that. And what I discovered, John, was that the value for them becomes limited because they don't have a lot of skin in the game. So if I told them, hey, here's where gold is buried, here's the map, and here's a shovel, but they only paid $20 for that information over lunch, or bought me, a $4 coffee or whatever, where's the incentive to go dig? Where's the incentive to actually go and do that? But if they paid me a more significant amount, they need to go implement it. Otherwise, they blatantly wasted that money. And so I realized there has to be some tension there, respecting my time, respecting, my price, and just sort of figuring out that element. And with it quickly came authority. Okay, people want to do business with people who are busy, with people who are successful, with people who got stuff going on. And the fact that I wouldn't just run out the door, and have lunch with someone because they tweeted me at 10 a.m., hey, let's go grab lunch, signified obviously this guy's at a different level than some.
So let's push into this, because there's a lot of coaches and consultants, obviously, in my world. There a lot of them, you can instantly book time with them sight unseen on their calendar. They'll put their phone in their email. They'll, let's talk, 15-minute slot, today. So talk about that dynamic. And then Tony brings up a good point in the chat. He says, I understand what you're saying about the value of your time, but what if you're just starting out building your brand? You're desperate, you're hungry, you need business. How do you juxtapose those two things with, looking like you're not busy and you're free and you'll meet with anyone and everyone? I guess part one is, what does that damage does that do to your brand? And part two, if you are hungry and desperate and need business, how do you balance that with, I got to talk to people?
So this is great, because my background is from the branding side. And a lot of people look at this just through straight the lens of marketing. I'm trying to get leads and I'm trying to get sales. They're not thinking, what's my position in the marketplace? What kind of authority am I establishing? What kind of trust am I establishing? So it's a great question that Tony brings up. And here's the way to look at it. If you're networking with someone because they can send you business, maybe they could become business, and you're just starting out, awesome. But still be protective of that time. Don't meet with anyone and everyone. So you've got to decide, who's the best person for me to say yes to or for me to pursue. So absolutely, when you're starting out, some things are different. There's no question about that. But even starting out, I will tell you, there's nothing that drains your energy more than the quick coffee meeting that you're hoping turns into something that turns into a 3-hour meeting that you realize they can't afford you, or they're not the right person, or not a good fit or whatever. And then you've wasted a huge chunk of your day and you're like, why isn't this working? So it's I would rather you be at home creating content and, working on that part of your marketing than just, I'm going to go out and sort of meet everybody. So I'm all about go meet people, be open, be accessible, but just remember to view things through the lens of, what kind of brand am I trying to build? And it's, sort of that classic thing of, people don't show up to buy a Lamborghini and just, want to test drive because they're curious. They're at the lot because they know they want the Lamborghini. Why? It's a different brand. It's a different positioning. So again, Lamborghini's saying, no matter who steps foot in the parking lot, we're going to talk to them, but the filtering's already been done.
Yeah. And that's you don't walk in, and let's take it from, it's so easy to do this from a product point of view. I don't get to walk into the Apple store and go, hey, I'd really like to kick the tires on an iPhone. Can I just take the new 12 home for a week? See if I like it. Can I actually have one of you come with me and just teach me for free how to use it? Your Apple nerd genius. And then, let's just see how it goes. You don't get to do that, right? You go in and they've got that branding level. And I think that's also, it's so important for your mindset, because this is true. And I used to do this. I would drive across town, share and demonstrate all this expertise, pour out all this emotion. And at the end, the person will go, yeah, I can't afford it, or it's not the right time, or thanks for all the free info, see you later.
Right.
And it was very defeating and draining. So I want to answer one other question, or finish this topic up with Tony by sharing my screen, because this is something I actually got early on from Michael Hyatt, where, when I was starting to follow everyone and trying to pick their brains, it was like, one of the things he did was, he said, if you want to pick my brain, start here. I have a free tip part of my website. And so what I now do is I create content to answer those FAQs, right? So if someone comes to me and says, hey, can I pick your brain about LinkedIn marketing? Sure. The best way to pick my brain is just to read my book. I won't even charge you for it. Here's a link to get a free copy of it, audiobook or EPUB. Or they might come to me and say, hey, what are your best tips on closing sales? Great. Here's a bunch of free sales training.
Right.
And the reason this is so important, and John taught me this, is create content not only for people to get to know, like, and trust you and find out about you online, but create content so it demonstrates your expertise. Create content, not just promotion and selling, but like show people how to actually get a win through your content. And what you can do then is when people come up, you can use your content to qualify them. So not only, even if you're just starting out, like Tony said, like, that demonstrates your expertise and it's free and people read it and they go, gosh, that makes a lot of sense. That's pretty cool. What else is there? It positions you as an authority to, now have a sale, right?
It's such a great point, because good marketing attracts the right people, but great marketing attracts them and repels the wrong people. This was something like Red Bull spent years making sure that certain demographics and certain age groups basically didn't purchase their drink because it wasn't who they were for. Well, they did that by creating advertising that spoke to the target market, but then also made, my parents be like, these crazy kids, whatever. Like, and that's exactly what Red Bull was wanting to do. So it's that thing of, putting out your content, putting out your messaging. We're always trying to generate leads. That's the business every single one of us are in. Mm-hmm. But we often don't realize that, how is someone indoctrinated into your brand? How, what have they seen? What have they experienced? Because that changes it. Now when I get on a coaching call with someone, say it's a prospect, I'm not doing a lot of screening. So someone basically, gets on the phone with me and they say, how do I hire you? And it's credit card time at that point, right? Like, I'm not, doing a big pitch. Now, I may be trying to interview them and qualifying them because I obviously want it to be the right fit, or that's not going to be good for either one of us. But that's the thing, is like, usually by the time I end up having that conversation, they're pre-sold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I found this true as I've grown my business with your coaching, is like, in the beginning, I was just trying to get anyone and everyone. I was selling $47, $97, whatever. And now I'm able to sell 5-figure projects, right? And big done for you stuff, which is amazing. And the process has not changed as far as sales goes, which is the more content, and you told me this back in 2012, the more content of mine someone has gone through, the easier the sale is.
Yeah.
Because they come in and they're just like, I already know you're like, one guy came in and spent $50,000 with me, and it closed in about 3 minutes. Mm-hmm. And the reason was, he goes, you've been in my head for the last 100 hours. I was like, I'm sorry, what? He's like, well, I've listened to your audiobook 6 times, and that's like a 3-hour book. And I've been binging through your podcast. I walk 3 or 4 miles every day, and I've just been binging on your stuff.
And see, part of that, John, is we have to look at, as we're going to be marketing, we have to understand behavior. We have to understand the science behind things and the psychology. And, the reason the Coca-Cola company is such a worldwide brand is they understood in the very early days something that scientists call the mere exposure effect, which is the more times you're exposed to something, over time, you develop a natural preference for it. So it's not that Coca-Cola now, like, Coca-Cola doesn't do a Super Bowl commercial because no one's heard of Coke. Right? They're not doing it because it's new. They tried that failed. But why are they doing it? mass exposure. They understand that the more you see it, you're going to tend to develop a preference for these things. Now, we're trying to sometimes compete in very competitive industries, and we're trying to stand out. And I want everybody's content to be good, and I want it to be quality. I want it to be relevant. But I tell you what, every industry, every single person on here, if you look at your industry, the people who are doing the most business are probably the people who also have the most amount of content out there, right? I mean, that's the thing. Like, you look at the number one podcasts in the world, like all the top, they put out the most episodes. Right. You look at the people who do the most on Twitter, they tweet more than anybody else. Same thing, Facebook, et cetera, because it's exactly what you said. It's that I see you everywhere. I often ask people, I say, well, what made you reach out to finally hire me? Because I'm thinking, is it a piece of content I created? What did I do? And they say, I like all your stuff. And I'm like, okay, cool. Can you be specific? And they go, nope, all of it. And I'm flattered, but also I'm like, well, that didn't really help me. So it's never a single post or piece of content that's ever made someone hire me. Like I've not done a Facebook post and someone's like, oh, that's it. Let me give that
Take my money. Yeah.
It's the sum of everything we're doing, because it is that exposure of, I just know that if they grab this and they open Instagram and there I am, and then they open Facebook and there I am, and then they open their inbox and there I am, it is a ticking clock until there's a financial transaction.
Yeah. And I think I think about the people that I pay the most attention to, and, they're always, I can't open a social media app and Gary Vaynerchuk's not there. Right. Because I started following him, and then all of a sudden he's omnipresent. Right.
Right. Absolutely.
But the other thing too, though, is he's always bringing some value. Even little.
It's always relevant, right? And that's the key to good content.
Just a quick tip, a quick win, a quick motivator. It's not just buy my stuff. That's an important thing to differentiate with content. Is it's not just sell, right?
Exactly. And, I remember talking to Gary years ago when he was only doing Wine Library TV. And the turning point for Wine Library TV was not when YouTube got bigger. It was when he was able to take those same videos and be everywhere on YouTube, everywhere on Twitter, running advertising and showing up at wine-related events and industry events. It was that all of a sudden people were like, I'm seeing Wine Library TV everywhere. They weren't just on YouTube and happened to stumble across it. That was the turning point.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he's brilliantly done the same thing of, let me make sure that I have this exposure, because then, like I said, people will behaviorally tend to develop a preference for what they see the most often.
So let's dive into a topic. This is interesting. Kurt and Ben have been going back and forth. And Kurt is talking about, as a financial advisor, many call themselves financial advisors but operate differently. Some are transactional, just sell widgets. Some are portfolios, blah, blah, blah. Kurt is a planner, does financial planning. He said, what I found, and this is interesting for everyone, what I found is many people don't realize what it is that we do and the detail we have. It's great value, but many people don't understand the value because they're so used to other types of advisors in my space. How would you communicate or word the value I'm offering? And this is a bigger question of, how do you, A, differentiate yourself from the competition, and B, how do you get people to understand your unique value?
Yeah, so there's a couple steps that Kurt should do. And I love the question, Kurt, by the way, absolutely brilliant that you're looking at it this way. It's really awesome to see. So one thing is, try to avoid, and I know there's limitations in your space on what you can say and not say in marketing. I'm not familiar with what those are, so please bear with me, but I know that there are some restraints that people have in the financial industry. But basically, you want to position yourself as something completely different than anything of the financial advisor. This is why when I had my real estate company, I didn't call myself a realtor. I didn't tell people I was a real estate agent. People would say, what is it you do? And I would say, I'm a home consultant. And they were like, what do you, and they would say, what's a home consultant? And I would say, let me tell you. And then they would go, I don't know anyone else that does that. And I would say, perfect, then hire me. If I'm the only one, let's do it. But it was, it sounds like, silly, but again, it's all that positioning, right? That's all it is. And so what I figured out is home consulting was really what I would do, because I had to consult them on what the market data showed the price of their home should be, consult them on, hey, you put in a pool, but not everybody wants that, so that may not add value to your home, et cetera, or consult them on, hey, guess what? Your kids' clothes and toys are everywhere, We can't have that when we have showings. Like, it is what I was doing. And so the promise is true. But, my competition would say, you're still just a realtor. And I'm like, yeah, but also my name is on the top sales sign and yours is way down there because you're acting like a realtor and I'm acting like something else, right? So it's just that positioning. So that's one thing, the way I would look at it, Kurt, because it sounds like you do something different, but let's let them know. Don't let them put you in a box. You define that box. See, that's a key mistake people make with branding is other branding experts, they say, your audience defines your brand. No, they don't. They don't. You define it. Now, the audience will tell you if you're right, but you define it. When Steve Jobs started making the iPhone and the iPod and all of that, the market would still have defined Apple as a computer company. Today, nobody would. Why? Because Steve Jobs came out and said, we are not a computer company. Right? He created that. And so it was different. So that's the first thing I would do, Kurt. And by the way, everyone can model this. The second thing is, Kurt, the best way that you're going to stand out from the competition is your personality. But put it in there because we do business with people. We do business with people we know, like, and trust. All these cliches are cliches for a reason because they're true, but that's the way you stand out. And in finance, especially, that's all about trust. And I want to have a financial advisor that I feel like I can ask any question to. They're not going to make me feel stupid. They're going to understand, that I'm just asking because I don't know and I'm an idiot on those things. Like, I want that person that I feel like I could just sit down and hang out and have dinner with. I'm not going to. And they're not going to because they respect their time, question number one. But I feel like I could because that's what it's about. And then as you build that relationship, it's also harder for the competition to come in and take from you. My retention rate on clients is insane. I mean, you said, you've been with me since 2012.
Only 8 years.
Yeah, but there are a million other coaches out there. So
right.
What's the deal? Well, it's about the relationship. It's about the personal connection. It's about those things. Obviously, there has to be a degree of value there and all of that. But again, I'm assuming everyone here, because you're even here, you're already pretty good at what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. You're so good about, and even reminding me as I listen, and I've been listening to you for 8 years, we all forget about branding. We all forget about branding and positioning. These two things that you always talk about. And it's like your actions will dictate what your brand is. So if you're willing to just take any coffee meeting and talk to anyone, you're saying I have a weak brand. I'm not busy. I'm not important.
Yeah, John, this is the failure that the industry has done to entrepreneurs. Every small business owner, every solo entrepreneur, every freelancer has been taught to focus on the marketing, focus on lead gen, focus on, your price and all, and they never talk about branding. But if you look at every mega success out there, they're a mega success because of the brand. You know what cracked me up is Oprah had a book come out, and it, of course, sold, 17 trillion copies. And all these internet marketers were, let's break down everything Oprah did right in her book launch. And I'm like, you idiot. It's not a book launch. It's Oprah. That's it. Like, Oprah could write anything she wanted, and we're all going to go buy it because it's Oprah. Just like, The Rock is not the best actor in Hollywood, but he's the highest paid because it doesn't matter what he's in. People just want to go and see it. Why? Because the brand he's built. No one's saying that dude is, the greatest actor to never win an Oscar. Right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, no one's saying that. But almost everybody would rather sit down and hang out with The Rock than any other actor out there.
Yeah,
right?
I think, and the stories, the narrative, like, so how he uses social media. Perfect example. It happened a few years ago in Minnesota. There was a girl who all she wanted for prom was for Rock to take her to prom. And there's thousands, I'm sure, of little, just a high school girl, right? Kind of, that Rock's her hero. He's so handsome, whatever. I'm sure every celebrity is inundated with that. So what does Rock do? Branding, marketing. He's in a movie. It was Jumanji 2 or something was coming out. He does a social media thing where she tags him and somebody on his team probably alerts him. He comes on the school intercom that morning and patch him in, says, Emily, this is The Rock. I heard you want to go to prom. I can't make it, but here's what I'm going to do instead. Your whole class is going to the Jumanji 2 premiere in Stillwater, Minnesota, where you live, on me. I'm buying out a whole theater, popcorn, the whole thing. You guys are going.
Right. Absolutely. Well, and I was trying to look here to see if I had it saved on my phone. I don't, but I do have it printed out, hanging on my fridge. I had tweeted, The Rock was voted sexiest man alive a couple of years ago, and I tweeted how devastated I was that he edged me out. And The Rock retweets it and says, next year, my friend, it's 100% yours, brother. And everyone all of a sudden, like my family was texting me going, you know The Rock? And I'm like, well, I guess I do. We're brothers. Yeah. Obviously, this is how it is. But it shows the power of his brand. Also, just side note for anyone who's curious, The Rock, who gets paid, obviously, a great amount to do his movies, if the studio wants him to promote the movie on his social media, he charges an additional $1 million for that.
So good. Because of those moves, right?
Yeah, which is something he would probably have done anyways.
Right.
But he
built that equity. And here in Minnesota, it went viral. So we all saw it. And then the local news, of course, covered it. They're at the Stillwater school. The girl is crying. Oh, somebody filmed it on YouTube when they did the announcement. Yeah. So then everyone's just like, he's such a good guy.
And that's the thing, John. So, we talk about, we do business with people we know, like, and trust. And as business owners, we're only focused on the know. How do we get more people to know us? How do we get more people in our audience? And then maybe we look at the trust because we want sales, we want conversion. We never stop and say, is our brand likable?
Yeah.
Again, to Kurt, like I'm sitting here right now, Kurt, I can't think of a financial advisor who's likable. Right? Like it's, man, you put your personality into it. You show the world how likable you are, dude. It's a home run. You'll be able to explain what you do all day long because they'll listen to whatever you say.
And that's what's cool about Kurt is he's been implementing a lot. He's doing a lot of video marketing. Kurt has this whole backstory. Well, first, he's a terrible person because he likes the Green Bay Packers. So we have to start
wait
there.
A minute. Listen, now I will tell. I'm a Steelers fan because I like teams that win. Just, side note.
Wow.
But my dad is a diehard Packers fan.
Your dad is, that's right.
I respect that mainly because, if you're a Vikings fan, that's like,
I know.
Sadness on a whole new level.
What's cool about Kurt is he has a very likable personal brand. He's a former sportscaster, a dad. He has these powerful stories about his family. And so he's been around Noon with Nemo for a long time, and I've coached him a little bit. And now he's putting out videos sharing those stories, making himself likable, right? And so, I think even I was looking at my personal brand, right? And it's like, you're very good at this too, but like, I'm trying to make myself likable. Like, I'm just embracing the fact that I'm a walking dead.
Those
right?
pants, there's nothing likable about your fashion.
But here's another thing. Oh, go ahead.
I just want the record to know. I want your people to know, your lovely audience that is so gracious to listen to me today. I want them to know that I coach you on many things that I do not coach you on. I take no credit or responsibility for your fashion choices.
Oh my God. Yeah. But even like looking at your personal branding. So yes, you have the blue steel intense, right? But then down here, like you're a dad, you're very intentional about, front page of your website, like this is, family, my kids are involved. My focus is, building my business around my life, not the other way around. So it's like, you're better than most, very intentional about that. And if we look at your Facebook feed even, and this is, people are asking in the comments, like, how do I start my brand? And it's like, just share your real life, right? Like, it's not.
Dude, I'm right there, top of your feed. You don't have to search for me. I was right there.
But if you look at like you're making a joke about orange juice with pulp, right? You got something here. You're tying a lesson to content. But you'll do a lot of things too, like personally, even sharing this funny post about your wife, Brooke. Like, look at that truck. That would make me so happy. That's a cremation truck.
Yeah. Like she loved the blue. She was like, that truck's so pretty. It'd be so happy if you had to work out of that every day. I'm like, babe, that's a burial and cremation service truck. That's a vault that there may or may not be a dead body in.
Yeah, but like what I like is you're very conscious about helping people know who you are, what you're passionate about away from work. Like you got your dogs in here. The thing I loved about this book that really attracted me to John was the mother-in-law jokes. Like you were so funny, and your mother-in-law is this perfect foil for you. She loves the attention or whatever. And you'd be like, yeah, I took my kids to the zoo and I said, see, this is where your mother-in-law lives. This is where grandma lives. Like all these. But here's the thing the reason I pointed out to everyone watching is Karen says in the comments, I'm here because of that picture with you and your son. Like, and last week I brought Bailey on to start the Noon with Nemo, right? Or Alex, I think it was, because I was doing a mindset lesson about him learning a backflip and visualizing it. And so your personal brand, you taught me this early on, John, a great phrase you said that I repeat all the time as if it was my own, because I steal from you, was the biggest sin in marketing and branding is to be boring.
Yeah.
That's the biggest sin. And you already said it earlier, your big advantage in the marketplace is your personality, your style, your communication, and, being memorable is so important.
Yeah. I think it goes back to behavior. We've got to stop and say, why are they here? Why is someone on Facebook? It's not because they want my insight of the day, right? Why do they follow me on Instagram? They don't want to see a bunch of quote cards. They don't want to see what I can make in Canva. They want to see me. They want to see my life. They want to see what's going on. And listen, it can be challenging. I live a boring life. I literally just do this all day. I stay home, I work, I play with the kids, play with the dog, like that. That's it. But it is, it's understanding your audience and understanding what it is that they may want and knowing, what resonates with them. Karen, who says, she's there because of the picture of you and your son. It's like that's the other thing is, I'm doing that same thing, but like most of my audience, most of my clients are married with children. Well, I want them to hear the story of, my wife and I have been together since high school. We have, 2 kids, both of whom, are miracles from God. Like I share that because it's my story and it's what's important, but also it's because they get to share their story back with me. They talk about, their children, that's a beautiful thing. That's a fun thing. And then when they're ready to learn mindset and marketing from me, okay, cool. We already have rapport. There's already a relationship there.
Yeah. And it goes back to what you said earlier, which is, when you put your personality into your content and your branding, you attract people that resonate and want to do that. And you repel people that would be a terrible fit. Mm-hmm. And even like, I knew I was attracted to you through your content because of the humor, right? The self-deprecation, the mother-in-law jokes. I'm like, not only is this guy great at marketing and branding, I'm learning a bunch. He's funny. Like I could have a beer with him. Like this was me meeting you through your book. Other marketing books I read were very dry, very boring. Tactics, right? Do this, do this, do that. I was like, yeah, okay. But I was like, I'm looking for a coach. This is somebody I would laugh with, have fun. And it's been true. And then even to a different level, when you coach and even through the content you put out, you share, like you're very open and transparent. Like I've struggled with depression or whatever it is. And it's like, that opens the door for me then to let my guard down. And
I was going to say just real quick, because there's a bigger strategy here that I want everyone to grasp, because when you do, you're going to be like, have such an advantage in your marketplace. And that is understanding that, the reason the humor is in Brand Against the Machine, the reason I talk about, failed suicide attempts and early struggles with depression and those things is because that is what's possibly going to come up on a coaching call. Meaning I can't help myself. At some point, I'm going to say something that may be funny. Usually it's not, but at some point I'm going to try. And at some point I may make fun of my mother-in-law. At some point it's going to happen. And I don't want to blindside someone. I don't want someone to hire me and then all of a sudden be, wait a minute, he's got a beard and tattoos and this sense of humor. I never saw that. I didn't expect that. Or I don't want someone to be, oh, he's a Christian. I wish I had known that before. So, it's putting all that out there is exactly what you're talking about. It allows the right people to connect, the wrong people to say, no, thanks. And that's cool, right? Like, that's cool because we're not going to be for everybody. That's okay. But it allows that. So then when they actually do business with you, there's no surprises, right? There's no surprises. The number one compliment I ever get, this is how I know if I'm on track or not, is when I speak at an event and afterwards someone comes up to me and they say, you're exactly what I was hoping you would be. that lets me know, like, okay, there's consistency. I don't want someone to know the social media me, and then let's say we run into each other. Let's say I run into Virginia's talking here. Virginia and I run into each other at an airport. I don't want her to then be, he was nothing how he was on that Noon with Nemo.
That shocks me because when I see this in real life, and I think people are so ready for transparency, authenticity. I was watching this. Okay, so I'm you're going to love this because you relate to this total marketing nerd rabbit hole. Like you talk about how like you watch commercials just to critique them, right? So I got sucked into a YouTube rabbit hole. I found this channel where he was critiquing, like he called it like charlatan or authentic, like Grant Cardone, charlatan or authentic, Ty Lopez, charlatan or authentic, like all these internet marketing guys. Right. And he would go, this guy like spent hundreds of hours, like all their claims versus are they really real? And it's this whole idea where they have this online persona and brand, and then in reality, you meet them and they're totally different, right? And that was kind of and so like I never really understood this until I was able to get to a level where I started to meet some of these people in real life, internet marketing people, famous people I would follow on social media. And then I'd be like, I can't believe I'm meeting you in real life. And there would be such a clash or dissonance of you're not at all like your social media thing.
Right. Absolutely. So let's unpack that for a moment.
Yeah, because that's a huge thing.
It absolutely is. And I learned this. So I like, rock music and everything. I grew up in the grunge era. Pearl Jam for sure. So Silverchair. Listen, that's underrated. So get out of here with that nonsense. Your hate for Silverchair is completely unfounded. That is just a lack of education on your part. And I'm making a note for our next coaching call. We'll just spin some records. Okay. But I had a friend years ago when we were teenagers who ran into Metallica at an airport. And they were huge jerks to him. And I know his disappointment, my disappointment, as an adult, I can get it. Like they're busy, they're tired, there's always context, right? I've since known other people that have met them and they were delightful. Everybody has a bad day, bad moment, whatever, right? But it was so not what my friend expected. It was that a massive disconnect, right? And I watched him and all his like fandom that he had for them just absolutely fade. And guess what? It went somewhere else. It went to other artists, right? And it did that. And so it's so important to have the consistency. Again, like let's step back. One of the reasons that the Tiger Woods scandal hit everyone so hard was the betrayal. He wasn't what he sold us, right? He was not what he sold us. Whereas Matthew McConaughey gets arrested for smoking weed and playing the bongo drums naked, and we're all like, that sounds about right. That sounds all right. Hanging out with Matthew McConaughey, right? Like that's it. Or Robert Downey Jr., would get arrested, for drug addiction and stuff again, and it'd be like, yeah, because he talks like he's never pretended to not be that guy, even since he's been so clean and sober for so long, which is beautiful and amazing. But he's open about it. He's not trying to pretend like that past isn't there, right? And I think that's the thing is like, we're looking for congruency. We talk about transparency, we talk about being authentic, but really I think all we're asking for is some congruency. We don't want to be caught off guard. And that's the problem, because I think a lot of times it's hard to trust someone because a lot of times we don't trust ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. Like we've made bad decisions. We've let ourselves down, et cetera. So we're so careful on selecting who we admire, who we respect, who we're allowing to speak into our lives. And so I just think that congruency is important. I think it's the right thing to do ethically, but also it is a huge strategy of shaping your brand around what you can congruently and consistently be.
Yeah. Because when I went and was lucky enough to speak at Social Media Marketing World, and I finally met all these big name people behind the scenes, off camera, off Twitter, off YouTube, in the green room or whatever, I was stunned. So many of them, like some of them, their whole online persona is rock, blah, blah, and they're huge introverts. I told you that I won't name names, but like one guy, I was so excited to meet him because I was a huge fan. He literally ran away from me. He ran out the room because I was coming in extroverted.
Were you wearing those pants?
No, that was not the issue. Yeah.
I just want to say, like, no, maybe.
Congruency was his online persona is huge extrovert. Hey guys, what's going on? So I come in a smaller group setting, and I'm like, because assuming you're an extrovert, I'm an extrovert, we're gonna instantly be best friends and scream and yell. And he took one look at extrovert Nemo and like literally turned around and ran away. Yeah, and I was like, you're not that guy online. What's going on? Do you not like me? Is there something wrong with me? Whereas if I knew online, if he led with, I'm an introvert, but I'm putting myself out there because you have to, right? If you're in personal branding, whatever, I would have been like, oh, I probably shouldn't charge at him at an event like a bull and scream, right? Because he's an introvert. I should be like, I'm going to tiptoe in. I'm going to respectfully, wait. Like I would have known how to handle him, but his brand was wrong. Mm-hmm. And then behind the scenes meeting other people in the green room, I'm like, you're really not a nice person. I'm watching how you're treating the staff. Like, and I will tell you, like my fandom, my following turned off of those people. Yeah. Now I didn't go like scorched earth and rip them online, but I'm definitely not following several people I was a big fan of and follower of when I went into the conference. Cause I'm like, you're kind of an a-hole. Like you're not at all what you're putting out is same with Tiger Woods. It's like, you thought you knew what it was. And I just think we can't underestimate that, right?
I think you're exactly right. I mean, it's, I did an event you spoke at, I guess it's been a little over a year now. Yeah. And, part of that event was I'm not going to stay backstage the entire time. I'm not, unapproachable. I'm not going to be, unaccessible or any of these things. And you got to see backstage, which was so unluxurious that it was a garage with an old couch that I'm pretty sure was like.
Let me see if I can find it. I mean, it was a cool place. Let me find you.
A great venue. Just the backstage was not a green room.
The event.
Not luxurious. And and I told people like, hey, just like you can go back there. And by the way, back there is not pretty. Like, this is not a fun hangout back there. But it was also part of that, like. People want, they have that thought of like, what is this person going to be like when I finally meet them? Don't let them down. They just want it to be consistent with what their expectation is. So
I want to say this too for sales, because that congruency with my brand and those goofy pants and everything, it's helped me close a lot of sales because literally I'll call someone for a sales call after they've been through all my content and they're like, I'll be my normal self. And they're like, oh, you're exactly like your videos. I'm like,
yeah, exactly. Right. Like I told every speaker at my event, wear what you would wear.
Yeah.
Like, do your thing.
I should have worn the Zubas. I should have pulled it off.
Thankfully you didn't. Just side note. There are exceptions. No, but you could have, right? You could have. And because it is you. And there's also kind of that expectation. I remember one of my other clients who knows you, you came up on stage in shorts and he goes, of course he did. I love you. Right? Like, cause he loved it, right? He was like,
I dressed up that day. I think I had like a collared shirt on. It was a big day for me. I showered, I shaved.
It was a big day.
I'm really going all out.
Yeah. But and I had another speaker who really more like dressed up like, suit, because that's him.
Yeah, Raul came in all dapped up. I'm like, what is your deal? But that's him. He wears, Raul Hernandez is the best.
That's him, right? Exactly. And that's the key, is to understand that, like, that's what they want. And let me just say, because I think this is important, and I want to take the rest of the questions, but I work with all these big brands. And often I think people don't understand that I work with these big brands and I don't wear a suit and tie. I've got, a long beard.
Are you going to Disney and Google and Twitter and
and I'm going in there, with visible tattoos, long beard, 6'3", like I am who I am, but they expect it because they see it in my content. So as long as there's not a surprise, right, then they understand. But if I was suit and tie in all my Facebook posts and then this shows up, they're going to be like, wait a minute, what? Right. Yeah. Or if I'm this in all my marketing, but then I show up in the suit and tie, it's like, is he putting on a show? Is he trying to pretend? Is he nervous? You know what I'm saying? Like any of that. And so
brain says, don't trust, alert. Yeah.
Right. And so people don't understand that they just want you. They just want the value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I got to show the pants one more time. I think it's important for everyone to see where they go. I wore these on a training call for a company yesterday that hired me knowing these pants exist. I wore them proudly, and they have 17,000 employees. They hired me to do LinkedIn marketing. And what was funny,
I want you to get a testimonial from them that says we hired him knowing these pants exist.
Yeah. And here's what's funny is they saw me here at Social Media Marketing World where I shared, and in the presentation, let me see if I can pull that up quick. But basically when I came into the presentation, they said, you're coming in at the end of the day. Everyone's tired. Everyone's bored. The last speaker put us to sleep. Please, like, bring the pants out. Like, be you. And they were like, because we know you'll bring energy. That's your brand.
Yeah.
And so they're like, we're hiring you because, yes, we want to cover LinkedIn, but we know, and you can see the presentation here, like, I literally was like doing my thing. And like, I loved it because I didn't have to hide from what I am. Right.
Exactly.
And like, this is my favorite slide. I'm like, does LinkedIn work? Listen, would a guy who dresses like this steer you wrong? Like, I'm tripling down on the fashion faux pas. I'm wearing moon boots right there. Those are moon boots, people, and red swishy pants, right? Like, and still I make a living. And now I play all this in to my marketing, and I go, look, if a guy who puts pictures like this of it, online can make it on LinkedIn, what's stopping you, right? And all of that's intentional. All of that is not manipulative, but it's just like having that personal brand. So before we run out of time, there's some other great questions coming in. Karen says, marketing and branding, I get it, it's a must. There's also sales and calls and sales pipelines. Can you talk about that too? So John, what's kind of your off the top of the head advice about sales and how to do it well, especially if you're a solopreneur, consultant, coach, small business owner?
Oh, I mean, it's obviously imperative. You got to know how to do it. I think a lot of people think they need more leads and they don't. They just need to do a better job with the leads that they have.
Close them. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's important. So yes, sales and having that kind of pipeline is there. I would just say again, if the branding is in place, the conversion on the sales calls are a lot easier. No one is getting on the phone with The Rock saying, are you sure you'd be a good fit for this movie? Are you sure people would watch it? Like there's an element of pre-sold there that makes sales easier. But you can't ignore that. You can't ignore it. Yeah, but you've got to know how to overcome objections. You've got to know how to handle people. Sales is absolutely important, and I love the question, Karen. But my guess is, Karen, without knowing you, my guess is when you're talking to people, you're actually pretty darn good. It's getting the conversation. So again, that's where the brand and marketing does become so important, because then, I have a feeling when you get to the sales call, you know what you're talking about. You probably ask good questions, et cetera. But yeah, you got to ultimately know, like, I got to know how to close them.
Let me say this, because I'm just going to get on my soapbox. Just 8 years of doing this, of having to sell, and people are like, you're great at sales. I'm like, sales is so hard when they don't know anything about me. Sales is so hard when they've never heard of me, don't know my brand, haven't read a second of content. For me, I don't close a lot of those people. What happens is I pour all this energy into the sales call, and I get them all emotional and excited and warmed up, and I tell them stories, and here's my journey and backstory, and here's how we can help you. And then they go, that's great, but that's a lot to digest. I need to think about this. I need to do my due diligence. I need to check the tires.
Yeah, let's walk through this, because I want your people to see you as a customer. I want them to see you in that role. Mm-hmm. So if I had tweeted you and didn't know you and said, here's, register here for a free strategy call, you would have been, well, that's spam. If I had tweeted you and you didn't know me and I said, for $250, you can get an hour of my time, you'd have been like, well, that's spam. You came to me and said, can I pay you?
I literally came and said, here's my wallet. Like, here's my wallet.
Yeah. And then also, by the way, after, at the time, 7 years of me coaching you, I'll never forget this, because I'm an idiot, But at my own event, you came up to me on a break and you go, what's the big sales pitch going to be? Yeah. And I said, Nemo, I don't have one. This is it. Just come to the event. Like, that was it. And you go, you got nothing else for us? I'm ready to buy. Yeah. And immediately I'm like, crap. I should have, I'll take your money, Nemo, but I didn't have it, right? Like, I wasn't thinking that way.
I've been harassing you for more products. I've been harassing you.
Exactly.
I literally do. I'm like, why can't I buy more? I'm like, I'll pay you. Please bottle up these calls. Sell them.
Right. Absolutely. But see, that's what I'm saying, though. That's that pre-soldness we're talking about, right? How many people have an event where the audience is saying, wait a minute, you're not going to sell us? And they're almost offended by it. It's not that I'm doing anything special. I'm vastly mediocre at all of this. It's just that I do understand the importance of how do they come into that pipeline? How did they come into knowing me? And if they are, consume the brand, like you talk about on your sales calls, John, if they've read LinkedIn Riches, if they've been on your email list, if they've been on some of these calls, then they're ready. They're ready to take that next step. But if they're just, I got on his email list today and now I see this offer, it's probably no.
That's what's been so interesting with getting to the place where now I'm selling 5-figure packages. A person came in the other day and did a 5-figure deal with me. And I said, well, how did you hear about me? She goes, I come to your Noon with Nemo. So I kind of feel like I know you. I know your thing. Your stuff is pretty good, and I want to take a deep dive into LinkedIn, and you seem like the right person. But I was like, it's all the stuff you talked about earlier in the call. She's seen me week after week after week. I've been authentic. On the sales call, it was still me. Like, there was no dissonance. And I think sales are 95% easier when they come in the right way through content. And that's also why you don't want to just say anyone and everyone can call me off the hop cold, because every time I do that, they're price shopping. They don't know enough about me. They're just kicking the tires. I'm giving them free consulting for no reason, as opposed to, and it's hard because of the scarcity mindset that we all have, especially if it's legit scarcity, like You're not closing, is to say, no, you can't talk to me. Mm-hmm. Like, I'll never forget, I had a guy checked all the boxes, tons of money, company, and I got on the sales call and I was like, and this is something you do, but I was like, you're not ready to work with me. I'm not ready to offer you services. And he was totally offended and like, what do you mean? And I was like, you're not ready because you don't know me or trust me yet. And he wanted me to jump through all these additional hoops. Well, let's have another call with my team. I want to bring my operations guy. And then I want you to put together a 400-page proposal. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't need to. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, because I can close other people. Another guy closed in 3 minutes for $50K because he listened to 100 hours of my podcast. I'm like, that's without any paperwork, without a contract, by the way.
Yeah.
He's pulled out his card.
Absolutely. I've got a client who's been with me 10 years now. He's been in my audience 15. And for a few years, he would tell me, he goes, you're on my vision board. I can't hire you yet, but when I can, I'm there. There was no sales pitch. Yeah. Right. When he finally contacted me and said, I'm ready, I didn't have to say, well, let me go through the list of benefits. Let me go through he's sold. He's ready.
So all that said, and we've hammered this point to death of the pre-sale, the content, know, like, trust, the brand. It's true. It makes sales 95% easier. When you get on the call, you still have to close.
Yep.
What are some of your favorite questions, positioning techniques? I'll share mine that you taught me, but what are yours? When you got someone warmed up, they're looking at hiring you, whether it's Disney or whether it's Google or whether it's just someone like me wanting to hire you one-on-one, what's kind of your process? Take us through kind of your close or your questions you're going to ask.
Sure thing. So for all of us here today, we win or lose based on client selection. If we take on the right clients, it's good for us. The client gets benefits. It's good for them. If we take on the wrong client, we're stressed, and that client probably doesn't get a lot of value. So knowing that every sales conversation I go into, again, whether it's Disney, public speaking, one-on-one coaching, whatever, group coaching, doesn't matter. My thing is I'm looking at client selection. Am I a good fit for them? Are they a good fit for me? And so I'm asking a couple of questions. Some of the key ones that I ask is I want to know what's not been working. Like, tell me all the bad. So they kind of get that out. And then I say, why do you think that is? And I'm looking, by the way, for personal responsibility.
Yeah.
I want them to take the blame. I don't want them to say COVID, the economy, competition, LinkedIn algorithm, or any, like, I don't want any of that. Like, I understand all those are factors, but I want someone to say, you know what, Facebook's algorithm hates me, but I'm actually not putting out as much content as I should. That's who I'm looking for. I'm looking for that person that takes self-responsibility, because that means they're open to like change. And then I also say, why is now the right time? And I ask that because I find, John, that a lot of people make promises, but not commitments. And for me personally, just so this may be unique to my style of business, but I tell people, hey, I can't care more about your success than you do.
Yeah.
Like, I do coaching calls with you. Between those calls, I don't know what you're doing. I'm not looking over your shoulder. So you're either implementing it and doing what I'm saying, or you're not. I don't know. So I want to know what kind of commitment to themselves, not to me. They can fire me anytime.
Right.
I need to know they're committed to the vision that they have, to implementing, to being open with me. So I'm just asking those questions because my business, my service is, it's real intimate. We're working together. We're one-on-one. Like, we're going to know each other. So I just want to make sure that they can listen. I want to make sure they implement. I want to make sure they're willing to be open. They don't have to be open right away. Trust happens over time. That's fine. But I just want to know that, like, oh, there's that path. Because I have a rule in my business, which is if I see your name on my calendar and 3 times in a row, I dread that your name's on my calendar, I'm going to fire you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because then it affects my energy for everybody else, and that's not fair to them. So it's all about, for me, kind of making sure I'm a good fit for them and they're a good fit for me.
Yeah. And I mean, one of the things, I have quotes of yours that I've used all the time. Like, one of your great qualifiers is for people is you can have excuses or you can have results, right? You can't have both. Or one of your other big ones that I use all the time is, income improvement follows self-improvement. So like, I like that as a coach or consultant, look to trigger those mindset questions.
Yeah.
And when I'm on a call, this has been a game changer for me. And this is something we worked out, I think, in our coaching sessions, but where I'll say to someone and I'll remove it'll flip the authority on the call instantly, where me normally being the desperate vendor, please buy my product, right? Even a 5-figure thing, I'll flip it and go, well, we're pretty picky about who we work with. So why would I want to work with you? What would make you a good client for me? Why don't you sell me on why we should take you on? I'll flip it all. And the person every time is like, I'm sorry, what? Like, what do you mean? Right. But all of a sudden, I'm not desperate. I've removed that, what Paul Klein, my friend, calls the stench of desperation. I'm like, well, I don't know if I want to work with you. Convince me I should. And what happens every time, John, is they now spend 5 minutes basically begging me to work with them. Yeah. They're like, well, you would love us. We're going to implement. We're not going to have too many cooks in the kitchen. Like, we're going to trust you. If we sign up with you, we're going to do what you say and we're going to take action. We're successful. We're doing this and this. And then I always let them finish. And I go, all right, you've sold me on wanting to work with you. So here's what we can do. Yeah. And it's so much, that's just a little nuance, right?
Absolutely. For me, I tell people all the time, I'm like, listen, most of my clients, like 95% of my clients are with me for years. Yeah. So tell me why you're going to be in my life for years. Like, why I should allow that space, because we're going to get to know each other. Right. Or let's take Kurt, because Kurt's my new best friend because he owns a Silverchair CD and everything. So you mentioned the mindset, and I think everybody here needs to understand all of us need to teach our clients about mindset, regardless of what you actually sell, because I'm going to use Kurt as an example for everyone. If Kurt is advising people on their finances, but they have a scarcity mindset of, I can't actually build wealth, I can't make that much money, etc. It doesn't matter how absolutely golden Kurt's advice is, they're not going to do it. They're going to sabotage it. So Kurt's got to make sure their money mindset is strong. You see what I'm saying? So again, for any of us, if you're a website designer, okay, great. But if that person doesn't believe that their business can be a success, they're never going to use the website. They're never going to send people to it. And then what's going to happen is when their friend says, I need someone to design my website, who did yours? They're not even going to recommend you because they're going to say, mine doesn't even work. And they're going to blame you instead of their own messed up mindset. So all of it, study mindset and get on that, because it's everything. So if your client is mentally in their own way, that they can't take your advice, they can't utilize your products and services.
Yeah, and people are saying they love this. Karen, Marco, I want to give one more sales tip, and then we got to wrap up. I know we're getting to the top of the hour. One of the things you taught me that has helped me crush sales, so I'm going to share your secret sauce here, is how to handle price and how to remove that objection in the heat of the call, right? Because you'll do all this work, then you'll drop the price, and then the person will go, well, I have to think about that. I have to think about the price. And that always just tanks the sales. And what you taught me was, at the beginning of the call, get to the objection, get price out of the way, and say, it's something like, basically, assuming we can agree on the price today, assuming that, works out, is there any reason you wouldn't want to start immediately? Right. And every single time they're like, well, yeah, okay. And then that gets rid of every other objection. So then once I get to the pricing, and they're like, yeah, that makes sense, that's good ROI, it moves forward, right? I mean, what else do you do around pricing to kind of, get that objection handled?
So that is what I do on that. And then the other thing that I like to do, because I don't know anybody else that does this, so I'm really letting out some secrets here. Please keep this all between the Noon with Nemo community if you all don't mind, because this one's big. Too often when we quote price, we are only selling them on the short-term value that they're going to get rather than the long-term value. So let me get real with everybody who's still on right now, okay? Pay attention, take notes on this. John's talked about being a client of mine for 8 years now. If I go outside and I get hit by a bus, I don't know why I went there. There's not buses outside my house, but so a whole bizarre world would have to happen. But let's say I get hit by a bus and I die. Okay, he can't get new information from me, but everything I've taught him for the last 8 years, he's still going to be using and getting value from.
Amen.
So when I'm quoting price, it's not, here's what you're going to get today, here's what you're going to get the next 30 days. I'm explaining this is the long-term value. So again, let's use the website designer example. I don't know if there's any website designers here, but so many times you may say, oh, $3,000 and I'll do your website and here's everything you're going to get. Stop and remind them, you're going to be able to use this website for the next 5 years before you need to update.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Show that long-term value. So many of us, maybe you build a sales funnel for people. They're not just going to get leads the next 30 days. It's not, the value's not in the handoff. So I like to paint that picture, that long-term value of, hey, you are going to benefit from my service long after this relationship exists.
Yeah, and I don't do that enough. Even when I pitch these done for you projects for LinkedIn for 3 months or 6 months, I forget to say, and by the way, you've now got a marketing machine foundation you can use for the next 3 to 4 years. Like it's done.
Right. Yeah. That's it.
It doesn't stop at 6 months. You're going to keep, like.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I love about, like if somebody who's like, I don't know, I think somebody earlier was like a marketing consultant or something. Like you're not just teaching people how to generate leads today. They're going to now take those same things you taught and they're going to use it forever. They're going to keep repeating it.
Yeah.
So that has to come up in the conversation of price, because we've got to get that prospect to stop looking at today and look at it later. Let me give a quick example of how I recently sold myself on something. We just bought a $6,000 couch. Now, that's ridiculous because there's nothing wrong with our existing couch, other than I decided I don't know that it's big enough and maybe I want space for my family. So let's get one bigger, right? Like I don't know what was going on in my head. So I buy this $6,000 couch. And my wife says, do we need to buy a $6,000 couch right now? Like, I don't care if we've got the money. Like, do we actually need it? There's nothing wrong. And you know what I told her? I said, think of how many family movie nights over the next several years that we're going to be all curled up with the kids and the dogs and how amazing it's going to be. I'm like, for the next, 6 years, we're going to, and all of a sudden it was like, well then, yeah, because it's not about $6,000 today. It's, I just planned, my kids' future till where they're 18 and I'm kicking them out of the house. Right. It's like, that's where I'm going. So I ended up selling myself on it because I'm so focused on the long-term benefit that they get.
I love it. All right, so we got to wrap this up. I love the comments. Doc Carney said, got the book, got the audio book. Brandon gets the machine. We'll start to listen today. Anyone Nemo recommends has to be good. Anyone that coaches Nemo has to be an angel.
Thank you, Doc. That's amazing.
Tell mattresses. So here's what I want to do. I want to do a couple of quick things because I want to give people an option to get more of you, John. And then, of course, I'm always closing. So I have something I'm going to offer too.